Hello, in today's video I'm going to talk about the popular sugar alternative agave nectar and if it's truly healthy to consume. So to start, what is agave nectar? Agave nectar is really agave syrup, but these names are used interchangeably in marketing. The nectar comes from the sap of the agave plant, a spiky succulent native to the Americas, specifically Mexico and the Caribbean, but is also in India and Pacific African countries. From the Asparaceae family, this plant has been used for medicinal purposes in Mexico for centuries, as well as to make the popular alcoholic beverage tequila. Agave nectar is made from the extracted juices of a fully developed agave plant. The nectar can come in many varieties dependent on the type of plant and process and method, but generally the nectar will come from the Agave tequiliana, which is blue Weber agave, also used to make tequila, and Agave americana, also called a maguey or century plant. Again, there are different types of agave nectar. These types are based on the agave plant used in production, how they're obtained, such as if they're cultivated or wild, and the processing method. Light agave nectar is mild with a neutral flavor and ideal for smoothies, drinks, bacon, and dressings. Amber agave nectar is medium with a caramel flavor and ideal for desserts, sauces, and savory food. And dark agave nectar is strong with a caramel or molasses flavor and ideal for marinades, coffees, heavy sauces like barbecue sauce, and pancakes and other breakfast foods. Agave nectar also comes in raw and standard forms. The raw variety usually has a neutral taste and is favored by many, especially since it's believed to be less processed. It's important to note that most agave nectar is really agave syrup. This is because the processing methods to make those products termed agave nectar are the same as those methods used to make agave syrup. The name is used more for marketing purposes since some manufacturers view the term nectar more appealing to consumers than the term syrup, since producing nectar requires less processing. In those cases where agave nectar is truly agave nectar, because it's less processed, sometimes such products will be sold as aguamiel. This term will be used on the food label. Another thing to note that makes the term agave nectar incorrect in some cases is typical agave nectar products are not derived from the nectar of agave flowers. Rather, it's the sap of the agave plant. Nevertheless, some notable things about agave nectar is it's very low in the glycemic index. This is the primary reason agave nectar is considered a healthier sweetener alternative to cane sugar and other traditional sweeteners. Because of its low GI glycemic index, which is between 10 to 20, it's been labeled as a safe sugar alternative for those with type 2 diabetes. However, agave nectar is high in fructose, which is also known as fruit sugar. This is the reason agave nectar has a low GI. Fructose takes longer to absorb into the body's bloodstream, creating a lower blood sugar spike. Agave nectar is around 80% fructose and 20% glucose. This is higher than high fructose corn syrup, which is around 55% fructose and 45% glucose if in drinks, or 42% fructose and 58% glucose if in foods. Since fructose is the sweetest of sugars when compared to glucose and sucrose, a little goes a long way when adding agave nectar to food and drinks. Many suggest using a third less of agave nectar than you would cane sugar when cooking in bacon, and reduce other added liquids by a fourth since the nectar adds moisture. And cook with agave nectar at low temperatures such as 25 degrees Fahrenheit lower for a little longer since it burns more than sugar. When adding agave nectar to drinks, some say dark agave nectar is better than light. Agave nectar easily dissolves in cold and hot liquids, making it an ideal sweetener for drinks. Other notable facts about agave nectar is it's a convenient vegan alternative to honey. It doesn't have a bitter aftertaste as many artificial sweeteners do, and its nutrient composition has glucose, fructose, vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, and saponins. It's important to say that if the nectar is highly processed, these nutrients will be lost. Agave nectar is primarily made in two ways, conventionally and traditionally. Conventionally is how most of the agave nectar you see in the grocery stores are made. This is similar to how traditional sweeteners such as high fructose corn syrup are made. Blue Weber agave, Agave tequiliana, and Agave americana are the two species most used to make agave nectar, though there are others such as Agave salmiana that are sometimes used. The reason for using these species is due to their high carbohydrate amount and short maturity time. The carbs allow for more nutrients to be converted into sugars thus more syrup. The short maturity time allows for many agave plants to be processed to quickly create more product for the market. The maturity time of these agave varieties is about 7 years, compared to about 20 years for other varieties. The agave plants processed are mostly cultivated. Sometimes agave salmiana is wild. To make agave nectar, it goes through a process of harvesting, milling, extracting, breaking down the sugars, i.e. hydrolysis, filtration, and reduction. When the agave plants reach maturity, they are harvested. The spiky leaves are cut off, and the pinna, pineapple in Spanish, the core of the plant, is removed. The pinna is where the nutrients are most concentrated. The pinna is put through a roller mill where it is crushed into fibers. Then the fibers are put into a machine called a diffuser where they are rinsed with hot water. Sometimes sulfuric acid is added to release its juices. This is where almost all of the sugars are released. The resultant juice is filtered, removing the fibers. During hydrolysis, enzymes are used at high temperatures to convert the inulin and fructans into fructose. These temperatures will vary depending on the type of agave nectar being made. If raw, the temperature will be less than 120 degrees Fahrenheit. If not, the temperatures can be up to 175 degrees Fahrenheit. It's important to note that where enzymes are concerned, if making raw agave nectar, the enzymes will likely be added to aid in the hydrolysis process. These enzymes may be from the mold Aspergillus niger, but if standard natural enzymes already present in the juice will aid in the process. The juice will now go through filtering to eliminate any cloudiness to produce a clear liquid. The more filtration steps the juice goes through, the lighter the color and flavor of the nectar will be. With the filtered juice, it will now be reduced to a syrup, often miscalled nectar. This is done by evaporating excess water in a vacuum at temperatures as high as 208 degrees Fahrenheit. If raw, the temperatures will be lower and the process will take longer. Lastly, the syrup is continuously stirred in a large tank to maintain consistency. Then it is bottled for sale. Traditionally, the process to make agave nectar is labor intensive. A person, talachacuero, collects the sap, also known as aguamiel, from the agave plant, then adds heat to the concentrate. Or after mature agave plants sprout flower stalks, some being as high as 30 feet, they are cut off at the base where sap is released. The sap is harvested for 2 weeks, 2 times a day, where people scrape the stalks to produce more sap. The liquid is extracted into a vessel, such as a gourd or bottle. The sap then can be concentrated into a syrup, in other words, agave nectar. Aguamiel concentrate, miel de maguey, miel de agave, or aguamiel. This agave nectar is different than standard or conventional agave nectar because the plants are not harvested. Agave nectar is primarily used as a sweetener alternative to conventional sugar. It's often defined as a natural diabetes and vegan-friendly sweetener. It's also in a lot of processed foods marketed as healthy. Many use agave nectar for baking, cooking, and to sweeten beverages such as coffee and tea. Some use agave nectar as a substitute for honey and maple syrup. And as mentioned, agave nectar is used as an additive in tequila production. Common foods that contain agave nectar are granola bars, energy bars, coffees, teas, alcoholic beverages, smoothies, marinades, and sauces, desserts, and baked goods. It's also sold as a drizzle on pancakes, waffles, and other breakfast goods like oatmeal. Agave nectar has been noted as a healthy sweetener with some key benefits. Apart from being a vegan alternative for honey, it's also been recommended for those with type 2 diabetes, specifically due to it being low on the glycemic index. This is because its high fructose amount doesn't raise blood sugar or insulin levels immediately. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition cites that agave nectar's GI value is around 5 times lower than conventional sugar. Due to having a low GI, agave nectar is unlikely to raise blood sugar and insulin levels significantly when consumed, and some have stated that agave nectar is rich in antioxidants, fiber, and vitamins, though depending on the processing method, these nutrients may be lost in the final product. Despite the positives stated about agave nectar, there are some concerns. The main one is its high fructose amount. Agave nectar contains about 80% fructose, while cane sugar contains about 50% fructose, and high fructose corn syrup contains about 55% fructose. Researchers found that excessive fructose impairs liver function and has been linked to obesity. And while agave nectar has been marketed as a safe sweetener for those with type 2 diabetes, fructose has been linked to increased rates of type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Researchers have also learned that fructose may increase heart disease and cancer risk. Because agave nectar is high in fructose, it's not ideal for those with irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. This is because fructose is high in FODMAPs, which are fermentable oligosaccharides disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. These are short-chain carbohydrates that are difficult for people to digest who suffer from IBS and other gastrointestinal conditions. Another reason is while agave nectar is marketed as a natural product, most conventional agave nectar in the grocery stores are highly processed, just like high fructose corn syrup. While natural agave nectar exists, the one derived from the sap, that nectar is expensive and not widely accessible. Conventional agave nectar generally goes through some chemicalized process, especially if enzymes are added. Going back to fructose effects on the liver, it's not easily metabolized in the body, leaving the liver to metabolize it, converting it into glucose for energy. If too much fructose is received, it can exhaust the liver, resulting in fat storage, thus raising blood triglycerides, which are not ideal. Over time, this again can create unfavorable health conditions such as inflammation, excess weight gain, metabolic disease, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and gastrointestinal issues. While less agave nectar is needed to provide the same sweetness as conventional sugar, researchers have found that it's easy for one to eat a lot since agave nectar has bypassed the body's satiety signals. Some have even questioned the value of agave nectar's GI score. This is because the index doesn't factor portion sizes and consistency issues are a concern. Many factors that determine GI scores, such as how the food is prepared or the lab it was measured, may be inconsistent, and some find agave nectar to have misleading claims, such as calling it nectar when it is really a syrup, and even raw. Most raw agave nectar uses heat in processing, though the heat is below pasteurization levels, i.e. 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Nevertheless, this is misleading as some will believe that no heat was used in processing to make the raw syrup. So, with what's known about agave nectar, should you consume it? I say no, there's just too many concerns associated with it, the main one being that it's high in fructose. While many say it's suitable for those with diabetes because it takes longer to absorb in the bloodstream, thus resulting in lower blood sugar spikes, in excessive amounts it overworks the liver and can cause a host of problems, including type 2 diabetes, the condition is supposed to be a harmless option for. Whether you have a health condition or not, agave nectar is really no better than conventional sugar. The primary difference is that it simply takes longer to negatively affect the body. At the end of the day, sugar is still sugar, whether natural or not. Even agave nectar's claim of being natural is debated when you consider how it's processed. Most agave nectar in the grocery stores are not traditionally made. If so, the nectar would be very expensive since traditional processes are labor intensive. Many health professionals say to treat agave nectar as any other traditional sugar, consume it in moderation. The American Diabetes Association has agave on the list for sweeteners to limit, along with cane sugar, brown sugar, maple syrup, honey, and others. And the American Heart Association recommends keeping added sweeteners to less than 6 teaspoons for women and less than 9 teaspoons for men a day. Among the sweeteners they mention are agave. Instead of agave nectar, go for truly natural sweeteners like raw honey, maple syrup, molasses, and coconut sugar, keeping in mind that moderation is key. But ultimately, consider sweetening foods and drinks with fruit such as apples, dates, coconut, and bananas. Not only will you obtain equal satisfaction of sweetness, but the nutrients often lost with processed sweeteners. Even consider just eating fruits as they are to curb sugar cravings. You'll get the nutrients and fiber, which will allow the body to handle the small amounts of fructose it receives from them. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I explained what agave nectar is and why you should avoid it. If you found this video helpful, please like, comment, and share so others looking to understand this popular sweetener can discover this video. Subscribe for more whole food and nutrition videos, and until next time, take care.